thought for today is there is a time each winter when things go from magical to miserable. We call it January. On this day in January, the church gives us this first reading from the book of Samuel, the famous story of David and Goliath. It's really about how to face giants in your own life. We see this remarkable story of the two battle lines that were drawn up on each side of the valley, the Israelites on one side, the Philistines on the other. And for 40 days and 40 nights, they sent out their champion, Goliath, from the Philistines to taunt the Israelites and to blaspheme the true God of Israel. And their proposition was that instead of both armies fighting, we send out one of our contestants, you send out one of yours, and whoever wins, the other group will become the slaves of the victors. And so, but nobody came forward. Saul, who was king, who was very tall and strong man, he was filled with fear. He would not go out to face Goliath. They say Goliath was about over 9 feet tall, had been a warrior since his youth. And the way he was dressed in armor, it had scales on it, so he looked like a big serpentine warrior, almost like a snake, reminding, of course, of the Israelites of Satan, the dragon, the snake, the serpent. So, of course, Goliath represents evil, represents the devil. And who comes forward? David, the anointed one, who had been anointed with the sacred oil, who was their prefigurement of the Messiah. He foreshadows Christ, who comes forward to face the giant. And notice what David is wearing, just his own shepherd's garment. And he comes out just with his staff and with his sling and with 5 stones that he had picked up from the creek. The fathers of the church say these 5 stones represent the 5 wounds of Christ. That's how Jesus defeated Satan on the cross, by his 5 wounds. It also represents the Holy Rosary, the 5 decades of the Rosary. We pick up, every time we pray the Rosary, we pick up David's sling to defeat the Goliaths of evil in our modern society, the culture of death, terrorism, war, abortion. These are the Goliaths that we face today. So how do we do it? How do we get victory? It is because of Christ's victory over death and sin by dying on the cross, his 5 wounds, and then the 5 decades of the Rosary that we pray every day to bring about the culture of life. So this remarkable story, David, only 16 years old, is sent out by his father Jesse to deliver lunch to his brothers on the battle line, to take out the sandwiches, and he notices what's happening and how Saul is filled with fear. And David says, I'm willing to go out to battle Goliath. And Saul's reluctant at first and says, but then David reminds him, when I was a shepherd, I used to use my sling to defeat lions and bears. I would have thought he'd said lions and tigers and bears, oh my. But he would defeat wolves that would try to attack the sheep, and he was so good at his sling, but he knew that God was with him. So he goes in, and why does he pick up 5 stones? The tradition is that Goliath had 4 other sons. So if Goliath was struck down, then David might have to battle each of his sons. That's one reason why he picked up the 5 stones. So he goes out to battle this satanic figure dressed in his scaly armor. And we notice how Goliath is led out by an armor bearer. Some speculation is that Goliath was very nearsighted. He could not see very well. So he had to get close to see what David looked like. And he says, you come at me with sticks. That's what am I a dog? You come at me with sticks. Well, David only had 1 staff. So again, the tradition is that Goliath had probably double vision. When he saw the 1 staff, he sort of saw 2 staffs. So he'd come at me with sticks, he says. And so he begins to blaspheme the true God of Israel, the God of David. And Goliath, of course, has a sword, a spear, and a scimitar. And he begins to advance on David, most likely about to throw the spear at David. But David uses his sling, strikes Goliath in the forehead, and Goliath is killed. And he goes over then, David, and takes Goliath his own weapon, his own sword, and cuts off his head. Notice he uses Goliath's own weapons to defeat Goliath, in the sense, to end the battle. And this is what Christ does. Satan thought he could defeat Christ by the crucifixion to have Jesus condemned. But Jesus used the devil's own weapons, the torture, the crowning with thorns, the cross, the crucifixion, and Jesus gained victory by using Satan's own weapons against him. And that's how Jesus defeated Satan. So David here is a prefigurement of Christ. He goes out not wearing armor, but he goes out and defeats with the 5 wounds of Christ. So Jesus is our fulfillment, and he is the Son of God who fulfilled what David did to Goliath. And so we, in facing the giants of our world today, use the same weapons, the 5 wounds of Christ, which is the chaplet of divine mercy, where we say, for the sake of his sorrowful passion, have mercy on us and on the whole world. So we use the chaplet in one hand and the rosary in the other to defeat the evil of modern society.